Good morning, guys. As you all know, my name is Yash. I'm a senior portfolio manager in 3X Capital. I myself specialize purely in waterfront properties and villas and townhouses. Everybody talks in the market about waterfront properties, right? Everybody talks about the scarcity value. Everybody talks about you should invest in it because, the premiums are high. So today, I really want to, go a little bit into the data and the backstory of, let's say, two communities like Emaar Beachfront and Blue Waters Island. When we identify communities, we say, okay, Maritime City, Rashid Yachts Marina, can you compare it to Emaar Beachfront versus Blue Waters Island? We don't look at supply. We look at the patternized wave that, okay, this is on the water, that is on the water. How can this be comparable, right? So I'm going to take you now towards the original supply of Emaar Beachfront and Blue Waters Island. Then I'm going to take you to a case study which I did where I selected one building in Emaar Beachfront at random, which is ready, handed over, one building in Blue Waters Island, and what is the genuine appreciation that an investor made. So Emaar Beachfront, obviously everybody knows the developer is Emaar, a very strong semi-governmental developer. The size of Emaar Beachfront is around 10 million square feet of land. This was introduced in 2018, pre-COVID, and the first residential building, Beach Vista, was completed in 2022. In total, as per Emaar, they were going to launch 27 residential buildings. But what we've understood till date is only 21 have been launched, and Emaar are planning to launch only one more. So the total building supply in Emaar Beachfront is going to be 22 buildings, right? Now, this is very interesting. Total supply as of now is 5,227 units in the whole 21 buildings which have been launched, out of which 3 or 4 are ready, rest are under construction. Average supply per building as of now is around 250 units per building with Emaar. Now, expected supply considering future launches, which is one, is going to be around 5,500 units. The current population as of July end, so I made this report as of July end, now it's obviously crossed more than 4 million, was 3.982 million. The total supply available for the coming years to new residents, considering that, see, normally what happens is obviously whenever there's a new launch and specifically off plan, your major chunk goes to investors, which people save. And what we consider is out of the total supply, if 70% are only investors, right, which means almost 3,850 units, which will be coming into the market in the next 4 to 5 years, which can be absorbed by clients because these are investor units. We are considering 70% of all the total supply will be for investors, which they will either rent or sell. If you go to the census population basically index for Dubai, what they've noticed is for one unit, 4.9 people, which means let's say 5 people can absorb one unit. So obviously that's not going to be the case for one bedrooms. 2 or 3 people maximum will go inside a one bedroom. But even if we consider that 5 people can absorb one unit, the maximum number of people that can stay in these units is around 19,000 to let's say 19,500. Now, even obviously, I mean, everybody is talking about the growth in population. Dubai is going to grow, let's say, a million, let's say, population more in the next 4 years, on an average 250,000 people per year. Even if we consider that only 4 million people in the next 4 years, 5 years, there's no growth. Still, 0.483%, which is less than 0.5%, can absorb units in these communities. Now, obviously, a lot of people ask me, but hey, Yash, in 4 million, not everybody has the bandwidth or the capital to obviously, buy these properties or rent these properties. So let's say out of 4 million, even if 5%, which is 200,000 people, right, have the capacity to move into, let's say, waterfront communities, only 10% of that can be, let's say, absorbed by Emaar Beachfront. This is where I genuinely talk about scarcity value proposition. So obviously in the future, me and Zoe are also going to make a video about genuine supply. Because in the market, everybody is talking about a linear growth. We are talking about areas where there's scarcity in supply, and there are areas where there is an oversupply to come. Emaar Beachfront is one of these projects which I wanted to highlight. Why people again made money, which I'm going to come into my case studies, is yes, there is genuine scarcity of supply. But apart from Emaar Beachfront, now when I go over here, so this is the unit economics on the current supply. Now this is again very interesting. This is again something which I like to do is See, everybody talks about one bedrooms, right? And then you should go with 2 and 3 bedrooms because one bedrooms, there's too much supply. Now, for Emaar Beachfront, if you look at it, if you look at the unit supply economics, the 1 bedroom and the 2 bedroom, in terms of the total percentage of the supply, is on an average the same. A 1 bedroom is almost 38% of the total supply. A 2 bedroom is 39%. So it's almost the same. That's why even in Emaar Beachfront, okay, when I'm going to show that data, people have made appreciation on 1 bedrooms as well. Now, is this the similar case for Maritime City in terms of supply? We'll get to know. Now, the second, let's say, for example, community, which I want to talk about, Blue Waters Island. And this is where I feel that a lot of the agents make the mistake by directly comparing Blue Waters maybe to a maritime city because the supply equation is totally different. Blue Waters Island, again, developer Miras, extremely strong semi-governmental developer. This was introduced in 2013. First building was built by 2018. This is only 3.4 million square feet of land on the island. Now in Blue Waters Island, they have 10 residential buildings only, and they have 2 buildings called Blue Waters Bay, which are going to be connected on the road, which takes you to Blue Waters Island. The total supply of Blue Waters Island is only 1,397 units as of today. Now, the interesting thing is, on the island, the 10 residential buildings which are there, the total supply is only 719 units. This number is basically the 10 residential buildings on the island and the 2 buildings which are going to be G plus 2030 coming on, let's say, the roadside of Blue Waters. Again, expected supply, there are no new launches for Blue Waters Island. If you look at the total population, if you look at the total supply available for the coming years, which is 70%, which is almost around 1,000 units, which means even, for example, if you consider 5 people, maximum people who can occupy these units are 4,800 to 5,000. This is the total population that can be absorbed into Blue Waters Island. Yeah.
This supply is including phase 2 of Blue Waters, or just talking about phase 1?
The 2 buildings, Blue Waters Bay, which are coming on the road. Blue Waters Island, if you look at it, there are almost 10 to 12 residential buildings. There are 2 serviced apartments. There are 2 hotel apartments. So earlier it was called Caesar's Palace. Now it's called, I think, Banyan Tree Palace and all those hotels over there. So talking purely about the residential supply, Blue Waters Island, till today, if you look at it, is one of the scarcest products because there's only 0.1% of the current population that can actually absorb this island.
How can we get this data for like communities like, let's say, RYM?
No, see, to get this, you have to study Property Monitor, DXB Interact. You have to go through all the fact sheets and floor plans of all of these buildings, which I've obviously have done.
Man, this is Blue Waters launch. I mean, like RYM, there are buildings which are not launched yet. So, but like a kind of report like that before the building is launched is going to be very interesting because we're going to know the supply.
So basically, see, okay, for example, Emaar builds master communities, right? So Emaar normally gives a framework of the number of buildings which they will, let's say, introduce throughout that master community. Now, what I've done for Rashid Yachts Marina, even for Jumeirah Peninsula by Beyond and Omniath in Maritime City, the 11 million square feet is, I have obviously forecasted and predicted based on the master plan. Right, based on talking to Emaar consultants and let's say Beyond consultants of what is the vision for this, let's say, area. And I've given my data, which I'll show. Now, again, one more interesting thing is, if you look at Blue Waters Island, the 1 bedroom is actually lesser in terms of supply than the 2 bedroom. So see, a lot of times what happens is, yes, I mean, we talk about 1 bedrooms and studios having huge supply, but what I like to do is then community specific, right? Is this the case? So for both these, let's say Emaar Beachfront and Blue Waters, one thing which I noticed is the 1 bedrooms were actually lesser in supply, specifically for Blue Waters Island. Now the other thing, see, everybody talks about floor plans and built up sizes, right? Emaar Beachfront and Blue Waters Island, they genuinely had good sizes. So if you look at the average built up size for Emaar Beachfront, a 1 bedroom was 800. On an average today in the Dubai real estate market, a 1 bedroom average built-up size is between 710 to 740 square feet. A lot of these developers, obviously, to cut down cost, are building 620 to 681 bedrooms, which are very small. If you look at Blue Waters Island, the 1 bedroom average built-up size was 1,000 square feet. So Blue Waters Island, typically the 1 bedroom, the 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, in, let's say, compared to, let's say, today's competition, are massive in sizes. Today, obviously, a two-bedroom, which is 1400 plus, is very difficult to get. Average out developers give two bedrooms for, let's say, 1100 to, let's say, 1300. Even Emaar, with certain, let's say, of their projects, the two bedrooms are 1108 to 1150 per square feet. So again, these communities, this is again my analysis, is they were scarce. Blue Waters Island is a completely low dense and low rise building. It's only G+6, G+7. There are no high rises. So a lot of times what I like to do is, understanding this, you can predict, let's say, for Maritime, for Rashid Yachts Marina, as a waterfront, what could be the growth. But I never say to my clients that exactly what happened with Blue Water will happen with Maritime. It may happen in the reverse direction. Maritime City, if you look at it, it's a very different concept. In Maritime City, one of the major hooks is the whole warehouse system is going to be transformed into Dubai's first commercial waterfront, let's say, zone. Talia by Beyond is the first forest district in a waterfront island in the whole of Dubai. So if the concept basically turns out to be good, people can actually make more money in Maritime than maybe in Blue Waters Island.
The forest one that you said, plus today, this area is getting 5 million visitors every year, cruise liners. Plus, Dubai Island, you got 2 golf courses on the water. In the whole planet Earth, there are 3 like that in the US. That's it. So it's different concept, but this place, it will explode. You're starting from Maritime City. There are some things that we cannot especially say in the camera.
Sure, no, understood. Understood, yeah.
Those things that are there, they're gonna, but that supply thing is interesting. But what's there, this starting Maritime City up to Dubai Island, that place is
That's another thing. So that basically brings me to now what I've done is I have predicted the supply of Maritime City versus Rashid Yachts Marina, and this will be interesting.